Hi everyone. So this is the moment you have all been waiting for because I am going to provide you with some information about the exam in our course. Right, so finally, we now have also a time for the exam. So you probably already knew that it would take place on Thursday, June 4th. And now recently we learned that actually it will take place between 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the afternoon of this day. So this is what's actually going to happen. So on this day, you will have 3 hours to make the exam. And I'll provide you with an exam document online via Canvas, which will appear in Canvas under under a new module that will be called exam. And you'll find it there exactly at 12 o'clock on Thursday, June 4th. So what you do then is you download the exam document. And there will also be a nice new SPSS data file for you to download. So you download those two documents, and then you can start. So in one of those documents, there will be your questions. So you basically, during those 3 hours, answer all questions, and then you send in your exam. Sounds easy, right? So you have 3 hours on this day. Documents will be online from noon onwards, and you'll have 3 hours to answer all questions and send them in. So in this document, there will be all the information that you need. So very specifically, there will be all the questions, what to do exactly, but I'll give you some more information already now. So basically, one important thing is that we had assignments that were graded before, right? For those assignments, you could work together, but the exam is really an individual assignment. So you make it yourself, try to find a place somewhere where you can sit for 3 hours and not be disturbed to make this exam. And it's really an individual assignment. It is an open book assignment though, so you can use any kind of information that you want to use. Obviously the book itself, so any field book, but also your notes, the practice assignments, the checklist, you can use all of that, as long as you're not going to use the knowledge of other people when answering your questions. So I decided not to have any proctoring. But still, I expect you to make this exam yourself, and there will also be a statement in the exam saying that by handing it in, you acknowledge that you made it yourself without the help of others. And there will be a plagiarism check just to be sure. So answer all questions in your own words. Right, so what will be tested in the exam? Well, as always, or basically should be the case always in all courses that you take, what will be tested in the exam, also in this case, is the learning goals or the learning objectives. So remember in this course, there were 5 learning objectives, and we actually already tested those in the 2 graded assignments. And basically in the exam, they will be tested again. So remember some of those learning objectives were about formulating hypotheses and research design, research questions, choose the right analysis, carry out the analyses, investigate the data for the different assumptions that there are for the different analyses, and also interpret those and report those. So those were the learning objectives. We already practiced with this quite a bit over the last 7 weeks. And in the exam, basically, you will show that you know how to do all this once more for a final time. Right, so the exam will basically consist of 4 different parts. So the first part will be very similar to the practice assignments actually. So in this very first part, you will use this data set that will be online during those 3 hours, and you'll actually perform one analysis and report the results. And I will make sure that the questions for this part 1 are very specific, such that you know exactly how to do, what to do. So there will be a clear description of a case. And then the first question very likely will be, which analysis would you carry out for this case? So remember that in this course, there were 6 different analyses that we practiced with. And for this part 1, you have to pick one of those 6 and then carry it out. So you first probably have to report which one you will pick. And then, for instance, I will ask you to check the assumptions for this specific analysis and write a short report on those assumptions. And then I'll ask you to carry out the analysis and again, report the results of this analysis. So this will be done in this first part. And this is very similar to what we've done in the previous assignments. So if you made those previous practice assignments, and if the graded assignments went well, then there's no need to worry for this part 1. It will be very similar. Then there's a second part with some basic questions, all open questions that you will answer in your own words. Then there's a third part with some more advanced questions, also open questions. And finally, there will be one short essay question to finalize the exam with. So yeah, as I said, part 1 is really using this data set that I will provide and select the right analysis and carry out this analysis, check the assumptions and report those. And I thought for parts 2 and 3, it would be nice to show you some example questions, some practice questions such that you sort of know what to expect. For instance, for this part 1, those will be more or less basic questions that you will get. So here's an example. So you know by now that it's possible, I hope you know by now, that it's possible to test for moderation using an ANOVA. But it's also to test for moderation via this process macro, right? So there are 2 ways to test for moderation. In the case of ANOVA, it's sometimes called an interaction effect, a test for an interaction effect. So a question could be, explain in your own words when you would use ANOVA and when you would use process to test for moderation. Now, this is a basic question because basically the answer to this question is literally in one of the video lectures. So here the idea is that you would use an ANOVA if your moderating variable is categorical, whereas you would use this process macro whenever your moderating variable is a continuous variable. So if you would get this question, you would say, well, I would use an ANOVA when my moderating variable is categorical in nature, but I would use the process macro when my moderating variable is continuous in nature. Now you could perhaps also say what it means to have a categorical variable and what it means to have a continuous variable. And then you've nicely answered this question. So there will be a couple of basic questions like this in part 2. Then in part 3, the questions will be a bit more advanced, although not really significantly more advanced than the basic questions actually. So your question could be, for instance, about the assumption of normality. So both in multiple regression analysis, but also in mixed ANOVAs, you have to test for normality, right? This is one of the assumptions for both those analyses. So question could be, what's now the fundamental difference between testing for normality in those 2 different analyses? So what you say then, I hope, is that in multiple regression, you test for the normality of the residuals. So you test for the normality of the errors. Whereas in mixed ANOVA, you test for a different type of normality. So here, for your within subject variables, you test for the normality of the difference between each 2 levels of your variable, right? And for the between subject variables in your mixed ANOVA, you'll actually test for the normality of the raw data of every individual condition. So that's quite a difference, right? So in multiple regression, it's the normality of the residuals, and in the mixed ANOVA, it's a different type of normality, as I just explained. So that's then what you also write down in your answer to this question in your own words, and then you're good to go. So basically, all the answers to all the questions will be in the book, but it's quite a big book. So it's nice if you studied in advance, such that you either know the answer by heart, or you know where to find it in your book, such that you can look it up and quickly answer it on paper. And then, as I said, this part 4, will be just one question that's a question that requires a bit longer answer, so a short essay question. And there I won't say too much about it. It's just another test of your knowledge of the learning objectives for this course. So for those parts 2 and 3, basically each question you could answer in, I would say, somewhere between 4 and 8 sentences, or even less, even fewer. So part 4 is a bit longer, so it would be it would require a bit longer answer. But also there I'll be very specific in saying what I expect from you. All right, so there are those 4 parts, and you have 3 hours for those. You'll probably need those 3 hours. One other more important thing is, of course, how to study, right? So as I said, the book is a very good resource for this course. You might have used it already quite a bit for the different assignments or not. You might also have used the videos, but basically all the information is in the book. So if you know the book by heart, then there's no need to study anything else. Although it might be nice to look at different things. So very much use the book also during the exam, just to look things up, right? So if the question is about a certain assumption, then look up this assumption in the book and use it for your answer. There's of course some more information related to the book. So of course there are my video lectures. Everything I say in those video lectures is actually also in the book. But in the video lectures, it's just explained yet again with some different examples in a slightly different way, but all the information basically is the same. So you can have another look at those video lectures if you like to look at the different types of analysis that we covered in this course. And of course, there are also any fields videos. If you're not too much of a reader, perhaps it might be nicer to actually look at his videos rather than read this book again. So this could also be a nice basis for studying. But keep in mind that it would be good that you sort of know where information is in the book for the exam. So use the index in the back of the book to look things up during the exam if you need it, and sort of know which chapters are more important than others for this course. And if you look on Canvas at the activities that we did for each week, there you will also find which chapters of the book we covered in this course. So which chapters would actually be nice to have a quick look at again before the exam. At the same time, we had all those practice assignments, right? So if you made all of those, that's a great basis for the exam. If you haven't made all of those, now might still be a good moment to do so. So the correct answers are also on Canvas, so you can just practice for yourself whenever you like to do this. And for the practice assignments, there's also some additional information that you could use. So here, specifically those bonus videos that I made could be useful. So if you make one of those practice assignments again in preparation for the exam and you don't know exactly how to do things, then have a look at those bonus videos, because probably there most things are also explained, such that it becomes more clear what exactly to do when you would carry out a certain analysis. Now I realized that there wasn't any bonus video for the moderation and mediation analysis in process. So there I looked at YouTube myself. So there, if you go to YouTube and you just type in something like SPSS moderation analysis or SPSS mediation analysis, there are all sorts of videos that you can watch that also perfectly explain how to carry out this analysis if you find it hard to do so on the basis of the book. So there, if you want to practice a bit more with this and you're not completely sure whether you mastered this already, just type in some search terms in YouTube and you'll find all sorts of nice digital teachers who can show you what exactly to do. So that might be a nice thing to do if you want to have yet another type of practice for the exam, specifically related to those kind of analysis. All right, so that's basically very quickly already what I wanted to tell you about the exam. So good luck studying to start with. It's just a couple more weeks, then this crazy semester will be over. So let me say, in any case, that I very much enjoyed this course, even though it was fully digital. I think I've been in touch with many of you, and that was very nice. It was also very nice to notice that many of you worked very independently and very successfully without any physical meetings on campus. So well done. Hang in there for the last couple of weeks, and good luck with the exam. All right, see you.